Welcome to Must Have Classics, where we restore history one classic at a time. Welcome back to Must Have Classics for part 2 of our Scout restoration. Today's episode, we're going to get this body off the frame. I've already gotten the front inner fenders out. Had some time to do that. Took them off. Pretty simple, just a few bolts down the sides. But we're going to go ahead and get the body off the frame. We've got a 2.5-inch lift coming in that we're going to be doing on this when it's off. We're also going to rebuild all the suspension and all the brakes, and that'll be in a later episode. But we're going to go ahead and get started getting this off the frame. First off, we're going to pull the steering gear and pull all that away, and then we'll get up underneath it and we'll get this thing off. So let's get going. So now that I got everything in the front undone, I'll show you everyone under here what we're looking at. So right here, we're going to go ahead and disconnect all these hoses. We'll probably cut these two, they're pretty easy to replace. This one right here, we'll just take that out to get that replaced there. Then we'll go through and get all these body bolts out here and throughout. We'll go ahead and get the clutch undone. But if you look, it's actually not too bad underneath here. It's been some work done, but it's not very quality work. If you look here, you can see where they have riveted patches in the floor to cover up some rust, and that's just not going to work for us. And we'll go through and fix all that. But I'll get all this stuff undone, and we'll get this thing off the frame. Now that I've got everything disconnected, hopefully underneath everything, we've got the body mounts out. We're going to get this body off the frame in a little bit more of an unorthodox way, since I don't have the normal lift that everyone else does. We're going to end up using a few jack stands and get it out. It's still going to work, and that's kind of the point of everything, is to prove that you don't have to have the nice brand new shop to do everything. You can still build nice cars in an old building like this. But we're going to go ahead and get started on it and finally get this chassis and this body separated. Go ahead and start tearing this frame apart. We've got a new 2.5-inch lift that should be here any minute. We'll be doing on that. That's going to replace the leaf springs, replace the shocks. But we want to go ahead and get this exhaust out of the way, get the drive shafts out of it, get the headers off, the front of the engine taken apart, just so we can clean it up a little bit better and see if we need to go ahead and pull that motor out with the transmission and transfer case, or if we kind of re-gasket it as it is. We're going to go ahead and get started by pulling this old exhaust out. We're not going to use it. It's going to get thrown away. We're going to keep the headers, but everything else can get thrown away, since we did have dead mice blow out of it when we fired it up. But we'll get all that out of the way, and we'll get started on it. Get ready to go. Now that I've got the exhaust out, I've got the rear drive shaft out, I'm going to go through and get this starter out here. It's kind of in the way to get the headers out. The rest of the headers out, I had to cut one part off because they welded it on. After that, I'm going to go ahead and pull this alternator off, pull the front end of the engine off, pull that fan off. Go ahead and pull this carburetor. We're going to send it off to a specialist to get it rebuilt, because those international carburetors, they don't really do the best, but we want this one to perform the way it's supposed to. We're going to pull this distributor out, pull all that off, get this engine stripped down so we can see what we're working with. We'll get it all cleaned up and get ready to get it re-gasketed and painted and get it back looking new. Now that I've gotten the motor all torn apart, we're ready to start working on that later on. But we're going to go ahead and move to the back end here. We are going to pull this rear end out. We've got all new leaf springs coming in with that new lift kit. But I wanted to show a few things here. So the customer originally said he had kind of a rough ride. And this is kind of those moments where anyone that's buying a car, you should really look underneath it, double check everything. Because if you look here, we have a shock that's completely missing. This shock is barely even attached, and then the front of this leaf spring has no nut holding it on. He got very lucky to the fact that he drove this thing 5 miles down a dirt road that none of this came apart. So if you're building a car and you're going to sell it, tie everything, all the loose ends up, so it's at least safe if someone tries to get in and drive it, or at least tell them that something's wrong with it. And always get underneath the car, take a look at it, because you never want this to happen to you, especially driving down the road. But we're going to start by getting these wheels off, getting these brakes torn apart. All that's going to get replaced, but we're going to get all this out and we're going to start right now. Well, as you can tell, the brakes still took a little bit longer than we hoped they would. We had some problems with the fact that the last person that built them, they adjusted the brake shoes too tight, so therefore when the vehicle sat for so long, they rusted into it. So now we're going to go ahead, since that's all apart, we're going to go ahead and pull the rest of these bolts out for the leaf springs, pull that rear end separate of it, get this one shock off, get this rear end out. So that way we're not having to worry about it anymore when we clean everything up and get these new leaf springs in with this new lift kit. So we're going to get started on that right now. Now that the rear end's all taken apart, we're going to start taking this front end apart. We're replacing most of the front end parts. We still got the new leaf springs for that new lift kit. We're putting new tie rod ends, all that. So we're going to get all that out. We're still going to leave the motor, transmission, and transfer case in for right now. We'll see how well we can get to it once it's there. Then I'll make the decision after that if I want to clean it up. Let's get this front end out. now that we got the back half of the frame painted, haven't got that all done for us, we're going to go ahead and get this lift kit back on here. The lift kit we bought is actually a 2.5-inch kit from Rough Country. If you look here, this is what we got. It came with all new leaf springs, new shocks. We went ahead and ordered it with the shock boots just because we wanted something a little bit nicer. All the U-bolts, all the hardware. Now I do suggest that if you do want to buy a kit like this, actually go to Rough Country themselves. It's a little bit cheaper if you do that than going with a different supplier. And also I've had experience with them before, and if anything's wrong, they'll take care of it themselves instead of having to go through a third party. It's a whole lot easier to work with. So that's definitely what I would suggest. So we're going to go ahead and get these rear leaf springs on and get started on that. Hope to have it back on the tires pretty soon. The front end, we're still working on getting it painted, but we're going to go through. We've got all new parts of the front suspension coming in, so we'll do that a little bit later. But right now, let's get this rear end on. Well, that'll do it for today's episode. We know it's been a while since we uploaded the first video, and we've been working on this Scout periodically. We've had a lot of problems with parts. We've also had to get a few other cars out. We got the 73 Maverick out. You can check out a video of it. We got the 68 Mustang out. There's no video of it. We had to get it out the door pretty quick. We've also brought in 2 more projects. We brought in a 67 Cougar. You'll see a series of videos of it. We brought in a 64 Ford Falcon. You'll see videos over it, along with 2 65 Mustangs already sitting in here along with the MG. Now, the biggest thing is that now that we've got this sitting here, you'll notice that this next episode, the next couple episodes is going to be based on this body. We've already got it stripped down to bare metal, and we're doing that because we discovered we're going to have to replace the quarter panel on the passenger side, and we're going to have to replace the whole floor pan. So that'll be in the next episode. So check back for that one. We'll try to get it uploaded within the next couple of weeks once we get some parts. We've also got my daughter on the way, so that's going to slow things down too. Like again, sorry we couldn't get this uploaded sooner, but we hope you still like it. Hope you like this video. Hope you subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you back for the next episode. Thanks. Well, there we go. That'll do.
We can edit this. We can edit this out. we can edit it all out. Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
All right. Take 2.